Hello everyone, happy Holi and welcome to the Literary Odyssey. This is a recorded live session on research methodology from our ongoing mentorship program that you can join to. Welcome to that in a bit. But why I am putting out a whole live session on YouTube for free is so that you can get a glimpse of what we do at the Literary Odyssey. In the recorded sessions, we focus on practical and in-depth analysis. There are recorded lectures, different from live sessions by the way, that give you precise information-based lectures. But with live sessions, we have fun. What I did in this one was not tell them research line by line, ये hypotheses होती है, ये sampling होती है, citations होते हैं. I rather show it to them through real research papers. We analyzed research papers and learned concepts important for UGC NET Paper 1 through that. I'm sorry if I sound arrogant, but do you see any UGC NET educator doing that? Using real research papers to tell you what research is? We are doing that because we understand the larger game. We understand the longer game of deep familiarization. What we do is not going to help you only with UGC NET Paper 1, that one exam, but also with your whole career. You're going to become better professors. This is going to help you with your research. When you will become professors, there will be scholars under you who will learn from you. And not only for research, for all units of Paper 1 and also for all units of Paper 2. This is what we do 4 times a week. And then one Q&A session where Shivesh and I sit with you, right? So that exactly is a longer game, familiarization for you. And needless to say, on top of all of this, you're getting weekly reading tasks, you're getting MCQs, you're getting mock tests, flashcards, and most importantly, you're getting personal mentorship or guidance from Shivesh and me. So join through the link given in the description, and I will see you in the mentorship program.
Start the
And
recording.
for
Welcome
now,
everybody to the
enjoy
Literary
the session.
Odyssey. Today, what we are going to do here is I have 3 research papers with me, and though 3 published research articles in journals. And through these research articles, we will try to understand and discuss concepts of research methodology. I will go paper by paper. Right. So the first paper that I have is a quantitative study. The second is a qualitative one, and the third is also a qualitative one, I think. If time allows, we'll do all the 3. If time does not allow, we'll do at least 2. Right. So let's start with the first article. This is the first article that you can see on your screen. Let me just see if the recording is working fine. Yeah, it's working fine. So this is the research article that you see on your screen. Now, this is how the title of a research article is, right? It's not fancy words or metaphorical words or figurative language. It's clearly stating what the study is doing, right? Because that is the utility of a research title. The utility of a research title is that when I as a researcher, or when I as a student, or when somebody who is seeking knowledge is trying to look for research articles, I would know exactly what this research article is about, or what this research article is trying to study, just through the title, right? So if you look at this research article, it says knowledge regarding human monkeypox among a sample of undergraduate and postgraduate students from selected tertiary institutions in Bangladesh, an online based, important, cross sectional study, right? So I found a lot of keywords just in the title itself. The moment I see this study, I can figure out if this is something I want to read, if this is something I'm trying to seek knowledge on, right? Apart from that, there are also several research concepts just in the title itself, right? The first is sample, right? The second is cross-sectional study, right? So just through this title, we now have 2 things that we might want to learn, and this is important from UGC NET Paper 1 perspective. So the first, as I said, is the sample is the word, and the process of collecting a sample, or the process of doing this, is called sampling, right? If somebody knows what sampling is, please write down in the comment section, in the chat box. And the second important concept that we are coming across is cross-sectional study. Second is cross cross-sectional study, right? So these are the two concepts that we have already come across. Does anybody know what sampling is? Does anybody know what cross-sectional study is? Let's start with sampling. You can unmute yourselves, or you can just write down in the in the chat box. What is sampling? How many of you don't know what sampling is? Aren't aware? You can just raise your hands or let me know in any which way. Fatima says she's not aware. Shweta is not aware. Ananya is also not aware. I think you guys, a little bit of it you might be aware, but then it's a different thing altogether to uh, articulate the whole concept of sampling. So let me do it for you, right? Now, whenever we are conducting a research, we're always conducting a research on something, right? So there is always a group of people or a group of items, right? If you are researching, let's say, about literature, you might have a group of novels, right? You might also have one novel. That is completely fine as well, right? But you always have something that you're trying to research on, right? And in the previous lecture, we discussed how research has to have some sort of generalizability, right? Is somebody saying something? No. So we know that research has to have some sort of generalizability, right? It should be generalizable. Not always, but that is that should all that is something that is expected out of a research, right? So for example, if you're testing a medicine on 50 people, if the research is successful and if you have tested the medicine to be working, it should also mean that if you use that medicine on somebody else other than those 50 people, or the whole of humanity for that matter, it should work. That exactly is generalizability, right? So while you have tested the medicine on just 50 people, sorry, while you've tested the medicine only on 50 people, you are testing it for the whole population of human beings, right? Or let's say if you're testing medicine on for the patients of a certain disease, right? So you want that medicine to be applicable on all the patients of that disease, right? But you cannot test all the patients of the disease, right? You have to pick a certain number that represents that particular patients, right? So this brings us to two concepts. The first concept is that when you are researching, you have to look at a larger population, a larger universe that you want to apply your research to, right? So let's say this is that general population. For example, you might want to do a research on women of Uttar Pradesh, right? So all the women of the Uttar Pradesh will be the population, right? But how many women are there in Uttar Pradesh? A lot, right? And every one woman you cannot research on, right? So you will have to pick a few women who represent that larger population, right? So this includes every person or every unit that there is, right? So a lot of people or items, whatever you're researching on, right? And this whole set, consider this lakhs and lakhs of people, right? This could be people, this could be items as well. And this whole set is called as, you can call it the universe of the study, or the population, right? Now we are aware of the limitation. What was the limitation? That we cannot test on all these people. So what we will do is that maybe we'll take this one person, we'll take this person, we'll take this person, we'll take this one person, right? and we will just conduct our research on these few people. And based on the results that that we got researching on just these people, we will extrapolate that result and say that the whole universe, the whole population goes through the same thing. Right? That is what we do in research. And that exact process is called sampling. And the people you choose to sample are inside the population, right? But they are not all of them. So that those people are called that set, that group of people who are chosen for the study, not the whole population, just the group which is chosen for the study is known as the sample, right? Now this is very essential to research. Finding a sample and then conducting a research and then extrapolating, generalizing those results to the whole population. That is the essential feature of research, right? And that brings with it several complications. How do you figure out, number one, a definite number, right? So, for example, if you have in the universe, you have 1 lakh, total 1 lakh people in the universe. Now, you cannot research on 1 lakh people. So, how many people do you think you need to research on so that the results should apply on all the 1 lakh people? Can anybody make a guess? If there are 1 lakh people in the population or the universe, how many people should there be in the sample according to you people? Give me a guess and then we'll later talk about it again. Oh, I'm so sorry. I think you guys are writing something and I was not able to see it. Let me just read the 1K, 10K. That's a reasonable guess, Akash. But you've also written previously cross-sectional specific time-bound research of large sample. Okay. Process of selecting individuals to estimate the feature of whole population. Oh, I'm so sorry, I was not able to see the chats somehow. It got scrolled up. Process of selecting individuals to estimate the features of the whole population. Perfect, Malik. Uh, Opposite longitudinal, one sample, long time observation. Are you sure, Akash, it is one sample? How can you have one sample? Are you saying sample size is one? Is that what you're saying? Sample size one meaning I would only research on one item or one person or one object. Is that necessary for longitudinal research? We'll come to that. Uh, one means limited amount, but that is true for even cross sectional. Sampling means limited amount, right? Sampling means limited amount. 1K, 10K, okay, that is one number. Others, what do others think? For a population of 1 lakh people, how many people should there be in the sample to justly represent the whole population? No guesses? Pratiksha says 5K. Okay, so Ananya says at least 5,000. Fatima says 1,000. Okay, so 1,000 is the lowest that we've found, and we have 5K, we have 1,000, we have two 1,000s, and we have also a 10K. So 1K to 10K is the corrective guess of this class right now. Right? We'll come back to this point. Later on. Right? So that is one problem. That how many people do you need in the sample if to justly represent the whole population, right? And that would depend on the number of population, the total population, right? So if the total population is 1 crore, then do you need 1 lakh people? Is that how it works? Do you need 50,000 people to research on? But 50,000 again is a very large number. How do you do that? Right? We'll come to that. That is one problem. The other problem is how do you collect the sample? How do you find people who would justly represent? Right? One thing could be that you just randomly pick people, right? And that is called simple random sampling. So what you will do is, if there are 1,000 people, you will just do a lottery system, let's say, right? And based on the lottery, you'll randomly pick 100 people, 50 people to represent those 1,000 people. So, right, randomly. But there is a problem here. The problem here is that if in that whole population, if the population is not homogeneous, what does homogeneous mean? Let's say you're trying to research about uh, the experiences, the mental health experiences, let's say, right? The mental health experiences of people. And you have a population of people from different, same quality, yes. So let's say you have a population of people who are just, let's say, teachers, right? So this is the population, and all of them are teachers, right? And now you are, so this would be a homogeneous group. What is the spelling of homogeneous? I'm just going to wing it. This is a homogeneous group, right? Because everybody here in this population is a teacher. Now you are trying to figure out what is the mental health status of teachers, right? So you can randomly pick a few teachers from this population. That will become your sample, right? And that is happening because it is a homogeneous group. But let's say if you had a population that was not homogeneous but heterogeneous. What does that mean? Let's say there was a teacher, there was an army personnel, there was a police officer, there was an engineer, there was a scientist, right? There was, what other professions are there? Is a fashion designer, there is a psychologist, right? So if there are so many different uh, people or professionals, then if you randomly pick uh, a few number, would that make sense? And let's say there are 1,000 teachers here, but only 10 army personnels, only 50 police persons, right? Only 3 engineers, right? Only, and you have 10,000 scientists, right? If you randomly pick, the probability of scientists dominating the study is more, right? So if there are more scientists in the sample, then it would not be a just representation of this population. Then how do you do it? Any answer to this? How could you do it? Think about it. How would you be able to do it if it's a heterogeneous population? If the population is heterogeneous, how would you do it? If they are not necessarily not non-probability sampling. Tell me in this particular case, Akash. Don't give me words, like don't give me these academic terms which are already there, right? So I like, just use your mind and try to figure out what do you think could be done, what would be a practical solution here, because I cannot randomly choose people, right? So what would I do? Thank you, Ananya. Great answer. Pick equal number of samples from each group. Perfect. Grouping. Picking one person from each group. Picking one person of each group could be a problem, Fatima, because then we will not have enough people, right? So let's say there are how many professions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 professions. And there is a sample, the whole population is 20,000 people, right? So if there are 20,000 people and we only choose 7, that would not be a just representation, right? We will come across this particular problem. So we need to have enough people, right? So the answer to this is grouping, correct? So we will make a group of people who are teachers. We'll make a group of people who are army personnel, of police officers, of psychologists, of, so we will make separate groups, and out of these separate groups we will randomly pick. We will then randomly, so now we have smaller heterogeneous groups, right? No, not heterogeneous. We needed a homogeneous group to do random sampling. Now we have smaller homogeneous groups. So this is one small homogeneous group. This is one small homogeneous group. This is one small homogeneous group. And now out of these smaller homogeneous groups, we will pick one. Sir, they're representative like election MLA MP but selecting their representative like election MLA MP. In elections, don't the people choose their representative? That is not happening, right? Like this. Okay, you're saying this should happen, right? Is that what you're saying? That teachers should decide who will be their representative, and psychologists should decide. That's an interesting way of sampling. I don't think it's considered a reliable source, because then the fact that then it becomes biased, right? It becomes biased because they will send the best of their teacher or the worst of their teacher. So, for example, let's say the example was the mental health of these professionals, right? So, how would they send teachers then? How would they elect one teacher? Would they elect the person who is doing the best in terms of mental health, or doing the worst in terms of mental health? But that does not work, right? We need a fair analysis. If they send just the people who are doing worse on the mental health scale, then it's a problem. Or if they choose like that, nobody can guess. Nobody should assume how somebody is doing in terms of mental health. But just as an example, right? So then it sort of election among the group sort of does not work, right? Without randomization, everything is biased, I think. Yes, even in randomization, there are chances of, not being able to properly. There's always a chance of error, right? So in research, we always consider error, we always consider limitations. And in that sense, research is a very humble subject, right? So this was sampling basically. There are two major types of sampling. By the way, the second type of sampling that the grouping part is called stratified random sampling. Stratified random sampling is when you create stratas, smaller stratas, or stratum, whatever you call it, and smaller strata, sorry. Yeah, you create smaller strata, and out of those strata, you then do random sampling inside those groups, right? So that is stratified random sampling. There is the first that we did was simple random sampling, right? There is also something called I'm forgetting the name, but where you pick every 10th every 10th item. So if there are 100 people, you will pick every person fifth person, or every third person, or every fourth person, something like that. This is probability sampling, where every member or every unit of the population has equal chance of getting selected, or at least we try to do that. Then there is non-probability sampling. Non-probability sampling is when the researcher uses their own prerogative. Systematic random sampling, correct. So there are two types of samplings. Probability, you'll get to know about all these things once you uh, probability, where we have simple random sampling, systematic random sampling, we have stratified random sampling, and then we have non-probability sampling. Non-probability, what happens is that it could be lack of resources. For example, I'm a researcher, I want to research about a big population, but I don't have that many resources. So what I'll do is I'll just, out of my own convenience, select people that I can find based on the resources that I have. And that's a valid research, right? It is called convenience sampling, right? There could be another type of sampling where we don't find enough people of that particular group, right? So let's say you're trying to work on a sort of drug mafia, let's say, right? So what you will do is you will find somebody who is into this business, and then through that person you will find more people, and through those more people you will find more people, and you will research about them, right? So this kind of sampling, because you don't have enough population, right? In the earlier cases, we had examples, like we had enough people, but when we don't have enough people and you are going this way, that is called, exactly, Akash, snowball sampling. It's also a part of non-probability sampling, right? So wherever there is a limitation of resources, some sort of limitation, we use non-probability sampling, and here we use probability sampling, where we can do it, right? But probability sampling requires a lot of resources as well. So that is sort of about sampling. Let's quickly talk about cross-sectional study now. So I think Akash did give a right answer to this. Now, cross-sectional study, we categorize research in several ways, right? One of the ways to categorize research is in terms of time, right? So, in terms of time, we categorize research in two ways. The first is a cross-sectional study. The second is a longitudinal study. Right? So, cross-sectional study simply means it's synchronic. If you understand structuralism, it's synchronic. You study about something at one point in time. And in longitudinal study, you study about something over a period of time. Right? So if you look at this study, it says knowledge regarding human monkeypox among a sample of undergraduate and postgraduate students from the selected tertiary institute of Bangladesh. So it is not tell us. It is not the title is not telling us that we are going to research. What was the knowledge of these students 3 years earlier, and now how it is and how it will be 3 years later. That would have been a longitudinal study, because we are studying about the knowledge of these students over a period of time, and we are tracking how the awareness regarding monkeypox is increasing or decreasing. Right? That would have been a longitudinal study. But cross-sectional study would say that, okay, right now we are going to do it, and right now how the scenario is, that we are going to analyze. Right? So that is the difference between cross-sectional study and longitudinal study. Right? Is all this clear? Can we move forward? Yes? No? Okay. If you have any question, just drop it in the uh, chat box, or you can simply turn on your mic and ask the question. These are a few names. As you can see, all of these are researchers. Right? All of them have co-authored this paper. Right? So there are 14 researchers, and you can see a number along with their names, and that number corresponds to this. So we know that Muhammad Hassan Al Banna, I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. Number one, he is in the Department of Food Microbiology, a Faculty of Nutrition and Food Science, Patua Khali Science and Technology University. Right. So similarly, if you want to see Nargis Akhtar, we can look at the eighth description, Department of Geography and Environmental Science. Right. This is a standard thing that these people do. The first thing that you come across a research paper is the abstract, right? And usually when you are going for paper presentations, they ask you to submit an abstract, and what ends up happening is that you even have not written a paper, but you are supposed to send an abstract, and that is absurd. You create an abstract after you are done with the paper, after you have found out the results, after you have researched totally, you have done the methodology part, you have researched, you have collected data, you have analyzed data, and then you have come out with conclusions. That is when, because abstract is a clear idea of what your research starts with and how it ends. Right? So if you look at this abstract, you will see the background. You will see background is basically talking about human monkey pox and how it is increasing, and what are the objectives of the study. Right? These are the study objectives. Right? So this is what background will talk about. Now all this background, which is just summarized in how many, 6-7 lines, will be just a second. This background, which is summarized in just 6-7 lines, will be elaborated to pages and pages in the whole research, which we will come across forward. But here just there is a summarization of it. Similarly, methods. Quickly, we can look at methods, right? So if you don't have the time to read the whole research paper, you can just simply read the abstract and find an idea about what the research was, what it tried to find out, what was the methodology, and what conclusions it came to. Right? So we have the methodology here. Then we have the results, and then we have what conclusions are drawn from this research. Right? That is the abstract for you. If you can see, there are a lot of numbers here. So there is mean percentage, median knowledge score, some beta, alpha, gamma, whatever. Right? This is not very important to us, but this gives us an indication that this is a quantitative study. Right? Quantitative study. Don't like it. But this is a quantitative study. Right? So this is the conclusion. We'll talk about results a little bit, things that are relevant to us, not a lot. Let's quickly skim through this paper now. So we start with the introduction, right? What does introduction include? Introduction firstly includes the introduction, the background to the study, what monkeypox is, what has been the research regarding that, what is the awareness levels, what research on the awareness levels of monkeypox has already been done, right? Because this research paper is about the knowledge regarding human monkeypox in postgraduate students from selected tertiary institutes in Bangladesh, right? So if there has been similar research in, let's say, a different country, you will have to mention it here, right? So introduction also includes something called the literature review, right? Now you might find a separate topic or a separate heading as a literature review, or if you don't find it, know that it will be in the introduction part, right? So literature review will be in the introduction part. So so as you can see, these 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, these are researches, different pieces of research that are being cited, right? So we are talking about how the human to human transition in both endemic and non-endemic nation happens. Uh, the the 15th and the 16th tells us the transmission of the disease to people can also occur through close physical proximity, direct face-to-face interaction, on intimate skin-to-skin contact, right? So you cannot say anything out of your own whims and fancies. If you're writing something, you either quote somebody who has said it to support it, or if you are saying it, you argue for it or show evidence for it. That is how you write research, right? Now if you can see, these are certain numbers. If I'm going to touch on 14th. If you can see closely, it's blue colored, means it's a link. So if I'll touch on 14th, just a second. Yeah, so it brought me to references, right? It is the same PDF. And if I look at the 14th paper, the paper that is being cited there is the 14th paper. And that paper I found, right? Applied business research, qualitative and quantitative methods. This is the paper that was cited there. So if I read something and it is being cited, it is being quoted, I can see the research and check whether whether the researcher is actually quoting, or are they bluffing, right? In fact, I can, these DOI links are the links. If I click on them, I'll directly go to the paper that is being cited, right? So this is called citations, where you properly list all the researchers that you have cited, all the books that you have cited, all the videos that you have cited, everything that you've cited. You list them properly, right? And wherever you are citing them in the paper, therein you have to give an in-text citation, right? So for example, let's see a place where they've cited it. Right. So the incidence of monkeypox cases has exhibited a substantial and notable escalation during past 2 decades. This information, to support this information, they have cited two papers, paper number 10 and paper number 11. This is called in-text citation, right? And if I want to read this paper, I can go down in the end of the paper. In the end of the paper, you will have the section of references, wherein you can check the 10th paper and the 11th paper, and you can see the whole paper, right? What its title is, where can I find it, where is it published, when was it published, right? And you can read them if you want to know about them further. Make sense? Does this make sense, or is it boring you? Right? Now there is an important aspect that has come, right? What is being researched about? What is being researched about is the knowledge regarding human monkeypox among sample of undergraduate and postgraduate students from tertiary institutions in Bangladesh, right? Now you have to justify why you're researching about it, right? Why would you research about something that is already known? So you have to argue, you have to establish that what you are researching on is something that needs to be researched on, right? So that is what you will do at the end of the literature review. You will review all the literature that has been written, all the research that has been done on the subject, and then you will find something that is called as research gap. And you will figure out, okay, this is a research gap, this is something that has not been done in this field, and I am going to do that. And you will state that. For example, if you can see here, this should be in the last paragraph somewhere. So the question of monkeypox reemergence remains unsolved, but the reason for potentially alarming situation in the near future is due to the adaptability. The recent growing incidents of monkeypox cases require early detection, prompt response, and management and prevention. So as you can see, this is trying to move towards awareness. There should be awareness, right? Although monkeypox has not yet been recorded in Bangladesh, the community must be vigilant to tackle an outbreak of monkeypox, right? Available data on the level of awareness and understanding of monkeypox within the Bangladeshi population is currently insufficient. And for that, he's citing paper 9 to 12, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right? This is only 11, 12, 11 and 19. This is 9, 10, 11, 12. Because there is a dash in between. This exactly is your research gap, right? This exactly is your research gap. The researchers have established that there is not enough data on the awareness in the Bangladeshi population. And how are we contributing to it? We are contributing by assessing the knowledge levels among the postgraduate and undergraduate students from tertiary institutions of Bangladesh, right? Now comes the most important part, which is methods and materials. Study methods and study materials. Study design, participants, and procedure. We already know what a cross-sectional study is. So the moment you say cross-sectional study, the reader should know exactly what the researchers mean. Tertiary level students, specified who we are researching on. It is important to limit your research also, right? If you would go on to conduct a study of every Bangladeshi's knowledge, that will become very, very, very difficult, because there is a lot of population, and it is not a homogeneous population. It is a heterogeneous population. So to find a perfect sample would be even difficult, right? So that is why you have to also limit yourself as per the resources that you have. So these researchers must have limited resources, and they have chosen what they want to research on. The participant had to meet the following eligibility criteria: be of age 18 or older, currently be an enrolled student, and be a Bangladeshi citizen by birth. Right? These are the criteria that these researchers have mentioned. And where are they mentioned? These eligibility criteria for the study were stated on the opening page of the survey questionnaire. Right? So as you can see, it's an online thing. It's an online based cross-sectional study. What this means is they must have created a Google form or something, right? Do you guys get Google forms of your psychology friends and sociology friends to fill up quickly? Please, it's very irritating, but they do it, and we have to fill those forms. So something similar they must have had to do, right? Correct. Also, the participants were instructed to consider these criteria before participating in the survey, right? So this is where research ethics also come in. These are certain standard guidelines that you are supposed to do when you're conducting a research. You're supposed to follow when you're conducting a research, right? For example, you have to inform the participants exactly what is happening with them, right? You have to also promise anonymity, that your information will not be publicized, right? After you are done with after you have found out the results, you will also have to destroy that data, their personal data, right? Of course, the figures and everything you will have to keep. We'll talk about more research ethics more when we'll come to the qualitative study, right? In addition, any participant with missing information was excluded from the study, right? So if somebody that did not fill the form properly, they would be excluded from the study. Missing values were handled using a list-wise detection technique where case, okay, this is irrelevant. Now, I remember I asked you a question about the sample size. I asked you for every 1 lakh people, how many people, how many samples you think you need to collect. Some of you, your range was from 1,000 to 10,000 at least. Let us look at how it happens. So there is actually a mathematical formula for it. There are several mathematical formulas. The formula that they have used is called Cochrane's formula, right? I'm not aware of this formula. I looked up. It was a very difficult formula, so I was like, let us look at an easier formula. But they are more or less similar formulas, right? The formula allows us to calculate an ideal sample size given desired level of precision. Desired confidence level, attribute of, so if you have, so this is the particular formula that they're talking about, right? And through that, they calculated that they need to figure out the knowledge status of every Bangladeshi student studying in a tertiary university, undergraduate or postgraduate. They need to have 385 samples. They only need 385 people, right? This is another formula. This is called Yamane's formula for sample size, right? And I found a table. N is the number of the total population. N in this table is the number of the total population, and S is the formula. N is the population, S is the sample size. Sorry. So what it means is, for if there are only 10 people in the whole population, you need to research on all 10 of them. All, because you can do that, right? If there are 15, you need 14. If there are 20, you would need 19. 25, 24. Let's move on a little bit. Here, 75, 63. 95, 76. So for 95 people or items in the population, total universe, you need a sample size of 76. Let's move a little bit further. For 800 people, you need 260. For 1700, you need 313. So what happens is, as the number increases, the sample size starts flattening, right? So the sample size would start something like this. Let's say if the population is this total population, as it increases, and let's say this y-axis is the sample size. Initially, as the population increases, it goes like this, and slowly it starts flattening, right? Something like this. Does that make sense? And that is mathematically provable. I'm not sure how, but with sampling, this is what happens, right? Somebody who is very well acquainted with mathematics of research would be able to, a good quantitative researcher would be able to tell you how this happens, but this is what happens. As the population starts going forward, the sample size starts flattening. So as you move forward, for 1700 people, you needed 313, and for 2800, you only need 338. For 4500, you only need 351, right? For 15,000, you only need 375. For 50,000, you only need 381, right? So you see the curve flattening now? You see the curve flattening? Does this graph make sense to everybody? Yeah. And finally, for 1 lakh people, according to Yamane's formula, you only need 384. If you have done the sampling properly, meaning if you have had a good method of sampling, which is the best method is a probability sampling, which is random sampling, right? Simple random sampling or systematic random sampling or stratified random sampling. If you are able to do that, and then you conducted the research well, the study will be as accurate as possible. Even if you have only 384 people for 1 lakh people, you don't need more than that, right? So you people were saying from 1 lakh to 10,000, sorry, 1,000 to 10,000. You only need 384 people. That is what the formula says apparently, right? Now, moving on. Now what they did was, Accordingly, the minimum requirement for the sample size is 385 participants, right? This is the minimum requirement as per this formula that they found out. Something similar to Bell graph, Gaussian distribution. All right, must be a similar graph. Got it. Accordingly, the minimum required sample of 385 participants was calculated, right? So 385 participant was what you needed. To strengthen the external validity and generalizability of the study, external validity and internal validity are two things. Validity, reliability, these are two different things. And then internal and external validity, this is not the same validity that we're talking about. So internal validity ensures a study accurately establishes a cause and effect relationship between variables free from confounding factors, and external validity determines if those results can generalize to other people, settings, and times. For this, I'll have to explain to you what variables are, and then what reliability is, what validity is, what. How many of you understand what variables are? Malika understands. Others? Yeah. So variables simply mean things. A variable is simply something that can change, right? So what can change here is, for example, in this research, what can change is knowledge, right? Somebody's knowledge might be what? Somebody might score 60%, the other person might score 70%, right? So it's a value that changes. That is why it is variable. Somebody's age might change, right? They have a limit of, I think, 18 to 25 in this particular research, but somebody might be 19 years old, somebody might be 25 years old, somebody might be 23 years old, something like that, right? So that also that is also a variable. Another variable could be gender. It could be a male, it could be a female, it could be not neither male nor female, something else that they identify with. That is again a variable. Social social class could be another variable, right? So the internal validity then would mean that you have to establish a cause and effect relationship between variables, right? So for example, if you're saying somebody is scoring low on the knowledge base because they belong from a marginalized community and they have not been given equal opportunities, right? So being from a marginalized community among the whole group is a variable, right? So you are trying to establish a cause and effect relationship between them. And if you are able to do that well, then there is internal validity in your study, right? And external validity is how you can generalize the whole study to other people. So out of the sample size that you had, if you conduct the same research on some other sample size of the same population, would you be able to generate similar results? If yes, then your research has great external validity, right? So that is the difference between external and internal validity. Just know that for now. Now, so what they did was they chose more participants than 385 to ensure internal validity, right? And so they had total of 927 responses, but 31 responses had missing information for certain observations, and 17 respondents did not provide their consent. So you have to provide a consent form, and if they don't give consent, then you cannot take their research. Sorry, you cannot consider their data for research, right? So the left participants were 879. So 879 is the final sample that we have, sample size that we have, right? N equals 879. Or S, I think S would be a better representation. Sorry. Right? I hope, guys, this is making sense to you. Like, I'm sure it is, but I hope you're not getting bored out of this, because this is slightly different from your, literature that you study. Do let me know if you're getting bored. We can, do a 2-session thing also. It's fine. Okay, this happened. Then let's see sampling technique. So this is a sample size calculation that they did. What is the sampling technique that they found? Was it probability sampling? What is it? Non-probability sampling? Was it random? Was it convenience? What was it? Right? So, or was it purposive sampling? That is another thing. Based on what purpose are we trying to fulfill through the research? We find we generate sampling. So, This says there was no specific sampling technique. Now, this is a huge blow to this research. When there is no clear sampling technique, that's a big limitation, right? And I'm pretty sure they must have mentioned it in their limitations. There was no sampling technique. The purpose was to reach as many students as possible to collect the minimum calculated sample size or greater. Right? So the purpose was to reach out to as many people as possible, right? So that is why they did not have a specific sampling technique. So they must have circulated this whole link through Facebook and whatnot. I think they must have mentioned it here. Yeah. Recruitment was conducted using social networking sites, that is Facebook, and data was collected using Google Forms. Right? I told you. So that is exactly what they did. Study variables. This is so variables. Let's look at the research objectives. That will help us understand how the variables are correlating. Research objectives are, firstly, to determine the level of knowledge regarding monkeypox among undergraduate and postgraduate students in Bangladesh. That is the first research objective. You have to determine what is the knowledge level, what percentage of people are good, what percentage are bad, what percentage are okay, all right, moderate level, right? All those things. The second objective is to assess the determinants of knowledge regarding monkeypox among the study sample. So, what determines the knowledge? That is also something that they want to study. So, what could be the determining factors? It could be your social class, right? People falling low on the social class might have lesser awareness regarding these things because that is how it happens. Could be your economic class. It could also have to do with the gender. It could also have to do with what subject they are studying. It could also have to do with have they been have they had monkeypox before, maybe, because somebody who's had monkeypox before would be definitely aware of the disease, right? So those all can be certain determinants, and they want to identify the significant determinants of knowledge regarding monkeypox among the study sample, right? These are the two things that they're trying to do. Where were we? Yeah, so they had a set of 21 questions that they asked to everybody. Just a second. Yeah, set of 21 question was asked, was used to evaluate the respondents' knowledge of monkeypox, right? 21 questions. And they're talking about how they sort of generated this question. There is also something called Cronbach's alpha. This is a metric of how reliable the test is. So the test of 21 questions, there is a quantitative way of studying how reliable, how good the test is. How well is it testing what it is supposed to test? How are the internal questions correlating to each other? Right? What that would mean is that if all of us, right, how many people are here in the meet? 14, 15, 16, however many people are here, all of us give the test. Are we likely to score more with similar knowledge base? Are we likely to score more in one kind of question and not in other kind of questions? Right? That is sort of what they're trying to look at. A Cronbach's alpha of, so the maximum you can go is 1. The minimum is 0.00, right? These are absolute figures. So in between this, if you score somewhere below 0.5, that is poor, right? 0.6 to 0.7 is something like acceptable. 0.7 to 0.8 is fine, good, that sort of a thing. 0.9 is pretty good. 0.8 to 0.9 is pretty good, right? And 0.9 to 1.0 is exceptional, right? That is the ideal situation, right? So that is your Cronbach's alpha. It figures out the reliability, internal reliability. We studied about internal validity. This is internal reliability of a test. There are a lot of terms that you might be coming across which might be new to you, and that might get overwhelming. But I think this will be a fruitful session because you are also getting a general idea of how research papers are written. And when we'll come to the qualitative one, I think we'll all be able to do two. The second will be quick because you'll be able to figure out a lot of things by yourselves. Right. So this is how they're calculating. They're just giving formula for everything that they've done, right? There is a statistical approach. I already talked about how it's a quantitative study, so they will have a statistical approach. They're saying that both enumerative statistics and inferential statistics. Enumerative statistics is, I think, also called descriptive statistics. Right? This is something that you should just confirm once. Descriptive statistics. So what we are doing in descriptive statistics or enumerative statistics is that we are enumerating, or we are describing the data, simply describing it, how it is, what is the central tendency, what is the mean, what is the median, what is the mode, right? All these things we are talking about when it comes to descriptive statistics. But when it comes to inferential statistics, now we have started inferring. What are we inferring now? That how are they likely to perform later? How is the whole population, whole universe likely to perform? So you are inferring things, you are predicting basically, right? So there are different ways to analyze it. There is something called ANOVA, for example, analysis of variance. There is uh, this chi-square test. There is a t-test. There are several tests. This is the test that they are using. They're also using Mann-Whitney test, right? Something called the quantile regression. We don't have to get into all of this. I don't know a lot of this. This is not relevant for UGC NET, right? But just stating that there are two types of analysis. Descriptive statistics is important for you. I have included that in the lecture series that there is. So just go and watch. In fact, I think 1 or 2 questions came from descriptive statistics. Very easy questions. You get an idea. They're pretty easy. Ethics are simply the study protocol was reviewed and approved by the institutional ethical committee of Pataukali. Now there are ethical committees regarding research in every country, or there are institutions that people follow. So there is a British council for this, I think. Here there is this council in Bangladesh, right? So there are different ethical councils. They have certain standards. They have certain rules, frameworks set, and if you follow their pattern, they will approve your study, right? And this is always a plus point, because ethically speaking, our study is perfect. That is what is the claim. Let's just quickly look at the research. The results. Now we have come to the results, right? So we started with introduction, literature review, then we established the research gap, then we talked about methods, research methodology, how are we going to research, how are we going to collect the sample, how are we going to analyze data, what exactly is the questionnaire that we are following, how are we going to calculate things, and how then are we going to analyze things, right? Analysis. After all of that, now we've collected the data. We don't need to show all of that data. That is usually in the appendices, which might not be here. You might email the researchers and they might give you that. Sometimes the appendices are there. In the appendix section, there are a lot of these things that they've researched on, right? So let's just quickly. This is a lot of numbers, so we're not going to get into a lot of this. But what we can see here is that, so this is going question wise, right? So a majority of them are aware of the first question, like, I think, right? So a lot of them are only 33 to 37% are aware. Approximately 1/3 of participants reported that they did not know the transmission mechanism of mpox. So question wise they're going here. Different variables, different determinants they have found out. So in terms of gender, male, female, there were 411 males, 468 females. Among these, 46.8% was, I think, the general percentage is what they're trying to establish here, right? So in terms of age, there were 198 people, and how they performed is mentioned here, right? Then what is the study major? Is it a medical study? Is it a non-medical thing? What is the study level, undergraduate, postgraduate? What is the institution type? So these are different variables that they're trying to figure out here. This is a question-wise analysis, right? And this is the result of the first objective, right? So you can see here 56.1% of the participants were poor, 23.2 were moderate, and 20.7% were good. So majority of them were poor in the knowledge regarding monkeypox. That is the thing that they have figured out. And then the second objective was to find the determinants. For determinants, you need something called the p-value. P-value is, again, to calculate p-value, the maximum it can go is 1. P value is, what it means is probability value, right? Just understand what we are trying to understand here is, for gender the p value is 0.00008. For study major it is 0. Less than greater than, less than 0.001. Here it is 0.180. So the idea is, if the p value is less than less than 0.05, then it is a significant determinant. In fact, they have bolded the ones which are less than 0.05, right? So for example, 0.008 is less than 0.05. So gender is a significant determinant. This is a significant determinant, right? What is the study major? This is a significant received information of mpox during education, right? So these are the significant determinants in determining what would be the knowledge base. But father's occupation is not something that is relevant, right? You have higher p values here, right? A lot of data, we are not going to get into this. Finally, you have strengths and limitations, right? Let's just quickly figure out. This study has various strengths and limitations. First, the study employed a cross-sectional survey, therefore findings could only be viewed in terms of association but not causal inferences. Second, since the study uses non-probability sampling, right? See, I told you the sampling issue is an issue, and they will have to address it, right? Now they are addressing it here. Non-probability sampling to the study used non-probability sampling to enroll participants. The study finding could not generalize to the entire population in Bangladesh. Why? Because it was a non-probability sampling, so it is a major limitation. Third, the study conducted among educated participants with internet access, right? So the fact that you are sending this Google form over internet privileges a lot of people over other people, right? Privileges people who have internet connection over people who did not have internet connection, right? So a lot of students from the tertiary parts of Bangladesh, a lot of PG and UG students would not have been able to participate in this research just by the virtue of the fact that they are not on the internet, right? So that is another limitation. Selection bias was also possible since this was an online survey, right? Despite these limitations, to the best of our knowledge, this is one of the first studies to assess the knowledge level of monkeypox among undergraduate and postgraduate students in Bangladesh. A strength of the study was that the study was not limited to only one university but included different types of university, right? So there is diversity in that sense. So here they have mentioned the limitations. Here they have mentioned the strengths, right? So you have to do that. Finally, the conclusion, they are saying, in conclusion, the study revealed relatively poor overall knowledge status on monkeypox. There was also poor knowledge on preventive measures of monkeypox. Gender, study major, institution type, and information during academic education were associated with knowledge score on mpox, right? We looked at the determinant table. Why am I stuttering? Right. And then this is the reference, right? Also, just one last thing that you need to notice here. I showed you how referencing was happening here, right? So here, citation or referencing, it is the same thing. Here we have a number, right? Number 4. It has the information of what is being cited. If I click on number 4, if I touch on number 4, it will bring me to number 4. And then I can see from here. This style of referencing is Vancouver style, right? There is something called the Oxford style. There is something called Chicago style, right? These might be new words to you, but a similar style that might be familiar is MLA style. Another familiar one might be the APA style. So these are different styles in which you format the whole paper. So this is following the Vancouver guidelines of referencing, of basic formatting of the paper. What should be the font? What should be the spacing? How should you have headings? For example, in APA and MLA, you cannot have this kind of, wherein if you see the normal text, the font is lower, and in the heading, the font is higher. You cannot do that in MLA, in APA as well. But in Vancouver, you're supposed to do that. Right? So that is the difference. A lot of times the journal in which you are publishing also has their own guidelines, so you have to follow those as well. A lot of times, if you are working for a university, or if you are submitting a dissertation in the university releases its own guidelines as to what they need the font to be, how they need the headings to be, do you need things to be central or indented or whatever, right? All those things are there. So these are different ways of citation and ways of formatting. Vancouver style, Oxford, Chicago, MLA, APA. MLA stands for, can somebody tell me what MLA stands for? You people have been silent for very long. What does MLA stand for? Modern Language Association. Perfect. And what does APA stand for? Correct. What does APA stand for? Should I tell you the answer? Do you guys know? American Psychological Association. Perfect. Correct. Thank you, Pratiksha. Moving on. So this is one thing that we are already done with, right? Yeah. So we are done with one paper. We can do one more. This will be quicker because I will not have to explain a lot of things. Now this is a qualitative study, right? It is a qualitative study, and this being a qualitative study means that we won't have numbers. We will have uh, something similar to what we do in our kind of research, right? It is a qualitative study. Nothing not to do with numbers, but feelings, but with text, with language, all those things. These are the keywords. Keywords help you understand what this research paper is about, right? So a lot of times you might not exactly be sure what you want to research on, or you might have a broader topic, right? So if you want to study on, let's say, trauma literature, so what you will do is you just type in the keywords: trauma, violence, psychology. You will type these three keywords, and based on these keywords, an intersection of search results will be there, where you will have research papers talking about all these three things. So that is why keywords become important. This is an abstract. This is another way of writing the abstract. Here you don't see an introduction, methodology, but all of these things will be there, right? This article theorizes the experience of using a coach to assist. What is the title? A quantitative study of infant sleep coaching in Western Canada, right? This article theorizes the experience of using a coach to assist with a baby or young child's sleep training as occurring at the intersection of three broader phenomena: the increasing use of paid experts to advise on intimate life, the porosity of the domestic sphere, the ideologies of mothering, right? So there are theoretical frameworks also that these people are using. Let's quickly look at the methodology of this. The methodology is, to do so, it draws on a qualitative study of sleep coaches and the mothers who hire them. The authors conducted semi-structured, open-ended interviews with 30 women in Western Canada, right? So the sample size is 30 women. So does this represent all the women? That's a question. All the women who are mothers? That's a question, right? So we'll have to see how they are going about sampling. Semi-structured interview. When you're conducting interviews, there could be a few types of interviews. One could be a structured interview. A structured interview simply means that you have set number of rigid questions that you are not going to change, right? The other is this semi-structured kind of interview, wherein you have certain few pre-decided questions and you have an idea of where the conversation would go. But if something comes up, it can get free flowing. You might ask other questions which were not part of this, right? That might bring up more insights. So semi-structured is that kind of an interview. Then we have unstructured interview. So what happens here is that there is no structure, there is no pre-decided questions. You just go and figure out yourself, right? Me kind of thing. Then there are focus groups. What happens in focus groups is that you create these groups and you make them discuss stuff, and based on the discussion, you find out what exactly are they discussing, and then from there you derive insights, right? Is there something interesting here? No. These are the two people who have written this paper. Quickly talking about now, one thing very interesting is here. This is a quote, right? There must be way more quotes than this. Moving on. This is methods. I think in the results section there should be results and discussion. No quotes. I found a quote. Yeah. So, as Mindy, one of the sleep coaches we interviewed, put it. Like, this is another quote from the interview. Now, my question to you is, it's not a question, I can't frame it as a question. This person, Mindy, that the out there felt like going through some magazine page. I think that is how it is. Maybe it was some aesthetic choice of somebody from the whatever aesthetic department, I guess. Coach Ronnie, right? So, Ronnie is one name that we have gotten. Where is it? Mindy is another name that we have found. Laura is one more name that we have found, right? Now tell me, is it ethical to reveal their names like this? Laura, Mindy, is this ethical to reveal their names? Like I mentioned in the previous paper that you have to promise anonymity, that they will be anonymous. So do you think it is ethical to do so? Yes, no? Yes. In general, it is not considered ethical. And that is why these names that you're seeing here are made up names. Mindy, Laura, these are names that are made up. You come up with, you either not name them at all, as one of our sleep coaches said, you simply said that. Or another way of doing it is you just give it a random name. In sociology, this happens a lot. You go and research about a village. Now, revealing that I went to that particular village might be detrimental for that village. Right? If you're revealing something which is not suiting the public taste about that village, that might be harmful to them. So you rename the village, and you have your you have your own name, an imaginary name you find out, right? There's a very famous research in sociology that I'm not currently remembering, but every student of sociology must have read it, or even they're recommended to read it. If they're not reading it, they're not good students of sociology, basically. So in that also, the name of the work is an imaginary village, right? So which village the researcher went to, we do not know. But then what will be the purpose of that research? The purpose of that research will be to give out insights. give out insights about, for example, for this research, even though the names are not real, names are imaginary, the insights are true, right? So the insights are still there. Insights still hold. So that gives us insight about motherhood. That gives us insight about what mothers go through, how their sleep cycle gets affected, and how sleep coaches are there, right? So all those insights are there. So regardless of whether the name is there or not. If you're asking about the village thing, then what the insights are about a particular place, talking about the place. So in Canada, you can do so see, about Canada, you can do it, right? But when we are researching a certain village, you would say, I research about a certain village in Uttar Pradesh, right? So that village becomes sort of a sample of other villages of Uttar Pradesh, right? So it is then there is certain idea of geographical location, but you are not revealing the complete information, right? And that is a common practice, at least as far as villages go. I don't think about towns this is the case, but as far as I'll recheck this. That's a good point that you put up. But I think with villages, it is a common practice that you have to come give them an imaginary name. Like think of Kantapura, for example. Kantapura novel, if you've read it, Kantapura is an imaginary village that Raja Rao came up with, right? But it still represents the Indian identity and the Indian nationalist movement and the whole Gandhian impact. It does do that, right? Still, even if it is an imaginary village, right? And there the characters are also imaginary. But here, they just have given it imaginary name. They're just not revealing it. The insights are there. And the insights about the village. There are some aspects of the location that we perhaps know, and that there are aspects that we don't know. That is what my limited knowledge says. Please, you can check this on your own. I'll also check about this. Okay, I think one last thing I'll mention here. Maybe we can continue this in the next research, next lecture. This is the way they are citing here in the index citation. So if you go back to the previous research, I showed you the index citation was happening something like this, right? So you see 13 here. So they're just writing 13, and then back there we have in the references via section, we have the 13th research, and we can see the complete citation for that 13th research, right? That is how they were citing. Here, whenever they're citing it, they're doing it like this. They're naming this, they're giving the surname of the author, and then the year in which it was published, the paper was published, right? So here they are mentioning more than one paper, right? There are 3 papers here. So Amrita 2016 is one paper. Gorovoy et al basically means and others. So if there are more than 3 authors, you will write et al, et-al, et al. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. He's or he's 2023 is another paper. What you can do, if you want to look at Amrita 2016, what Amrita 2016 has said, you can go down and you can check the references section. And you can look for Amrita 2016. And the first, because they are placed alphabetically, you will not have a difficulty, right? Back there, what was happening was they were numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here they have been placed alphabetically. So Amrita is A, so it should be right at the start. So Amrita is the first, so, right? So Amrita is the surname. Samrita Amrita is the name. 2016. The work is Go the F to Sleep, Well-being, Welfare, and the Ends of Capitalism in US Discourses on Infant Sleep, right? So this is the work that is being cited. So similarly, this is the case with every citation that is happening here, right? And you will see citations after citations, because as I said earlier, whatever you're saying, if you're not arguing for it, you either have to argue for it properly, you have to back it up by evidence, or you have to cite somebody else, right? If you just give blanket statements in research, that does not make sense, right? So if you notice this kind of citation, it's different than the previous one, right? So the previous one I told you is the Vancouver style of formatting. What do you think is this, right? Does anybody know what could this style of formatting be? And then I'll let you go after this. What this style of formatting be? This is the APA citation. APA citation generally is concerned with the surname of the author and the year in which it was published, because APA citations are generally around the science, technology, psychology sort of thing, even sociology. So they require to know the dates. Why do they require to know the dates? Dates is what they prioritize, because the recent the research, the better the research, right? So Ferber 1986, Ferber Sears 1999. This is old research, but 2023 research, 2023 research, this is newer research, right? So APA prefers this. The research around psychology, research around sociology, research around science, it prefers this is this is preferable, because we want the recent advancement in the research. With MLA citation that we usually follow the literature people, what happens is you don't need to write the here. Can somebody tell me what you guys need what we need to write? We do need to write, for example, let's say Riya Mandal has written something, right? A paper. I want to cite something that Riya has written. So what I will do is I'll say, as a famous scholar has said, and then I'll quote her within quotes, and then I'll start a parenthesis, and I will write firstly the surname of Riya. It's Mandal, and then what will I write? Had it been APA citation, I would have written the year in which it was published. Can somebody tell me what I would write? What should I write? What else is there? Perfect. Page number, right? So let's say in the book that I'm citing, Riya has written the arguments that I'm citing in page number 32. So I will write 32 here, right? Or if the arguments are from page number 30 to page number 40, so I will write 30 to 40, right? So that is for MLA. For APA, you have to write the year of publication. And if it is important, you will also have to write page number. So if you're citing a specific portion, then you will also have to write page number after that, right? So this follows the APA citation. All right, I think one last thing, what they have done is something called thematic analysis. Thematic analysis is a simple technique wherein you analyze interviews through finding larger themes, right? So what I will do is in thematic analysis is I will firstly make quotes. I will firstly read the whole interview, right? So let's say the text that is in front of me is the interview that I have to read. So I'll read it properly first. Then I'll make quotes and I will color code them perhaps, right? There are softwares to do it. I can also do it manually. So what I'll do is messaging other moms rather than reading a book. Let's say this is one code, right? So can I find similar something related to this? Mother's capacity, a marital relationship, or a child's future, right? So these are statements which seem to have similar patterns, right? Now I can choose another highlighter. Then I can highlight many of the coaches we interviewed discuss how coaching can be done with minimal startup. Right now, here we are starting to see things about coaching, right? Established training courses and own brand accreditations, right? So through this, I have found out 2 sub-themes. So the ones that I made with yellow, these are the codes, right? These are codes, and you highlight everything like this. You find interesting statements, interesting words, and these are this is code 1, for example. This will be code 2, right? This will be code 4, something like that. And you collect a lot of these codes, and based on these codes, you come up with sub-themes. So one sub-theme could be here, messaging other moms rather than reading a book, mother's capacity. So let's say the codes that are with yellow represent the sub-theme, motherhood and sleep, right? This is sub-theme 1. Then the quotes that are represented by blue would represent many of the coaches we interviewed discuss how coaching can be done with minimal startup, establishing training. So this is a something that clearly says how to start sleep coaching, right? And then we can put these, all of these, into a larger theme, right? So these could be two sub themes of a larger theme, which is motherhood and sleep coaching, right? So I just showed you a very simplistic way to do it, but you have to go line by line and do a close reading and then find these similar themes. This is called a thematic analysis. This is one of the qualitative methods that you use while researching, right? I think that is all that I will discuss right now. We have been doing this for what, 1.5 hours. I'm stopping recording.